Foreign seen Canada to expedite national and nation building projects to counter Trump. And in sport, UK threatens to sue Abramovich over Chelsea sales. Details coming up shortly. A military airstrike in northwest Nigeria has killed at least 20 people, according to the military and local residents, prompting calls for human rights groups to an investigation into the attack. The strike occurred over the weekend in Zamfara State, one of the regions worst affected by violence from armed groups, commonly referred to as bandits. Nigerian Air Commodore Ehimen Ejodame said the strike followed intelligence that a significant number of terrorists were amassing and preparing to strike unsuspecting settlement. However, according to residents cited by different news agencies, a group of local vigilantes pursuing a gang was mistakenly bombed by a Nigerian military jet. The Air Force had been called in by villagers who had suffered an attack earlier in the weekend. Locals said an unknown number of people were also wounded in the strike. According to residents, the bandit had earlier attacked the villages of Mani and Wabi in Maru district, stealing cattle and abducting several people. In response, vigilante launched a pursuit to recover the captives and stolen livestock. The military aircraft, this is a quote from one of the residents, the military aircraft arrived and started firing, killing at least 20 of our people. Abdullahi Ali, a Manu resident and member of a local hunter militia, told news agency. Amnesty International condemned the strike and urged a full investigation. Nigeria's military has previously acknowledged mistakenly hitting civilians during air operations targeting terrorists. About 60,000 Nigerians living abroad have so far registered on the Diaspora data mapping portal, an initiative of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. The initiative aimed at gathering detailed demographic and socio-economic data on citizens outside the country. The portal, launched on June 29, 2021, is a central component of NIDCOM's strategy to engage the diaspora in national planning and development. Diasporans from over 30 countries have so far registered on the portals as of the time of filing this report. According to data compiled from NIDCOM's Technology, Transfer, Innovation and Investment Department, a significant portion of Nigerians abroad are engaged in the healthcare sector. Nurses constituted the largest professional group of 29.97%, followed by pharmacists at 14.0% and medical doctors at 12.02%, the data revealed. The education sector also accounted for a notable 12.0% of the diaspora population, while students represent 11.0%. Engineers make up 8.0% of the registered Nigerians, and civil servants accounts for 7.0%. The data also reflects the distribution of registered Nigerians in historical, cultural, and economic ties with host communities. Cameroon topped the list with 6.693% of total registration, followed by Niger with 6.635% and Sudan at 6.070%. Ghana accounted for nearly 5% of the registration, while the United Kingdom holds 4.83% and United States follows closely with 4.58%. The House of Representatives Committee on Basic Education and Examination Bodies treated the management of the West African Examinations Council over widespread irregularities and operational failures that characterized the 2025 Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination. In an investigation hearing at the National Assembly, lawmakers grilled the head of WAEC Nigeria, Amos Dangote, over what they described as systemic lapses that had eroded public trust in Nigeria's examination process. The body faces sharp criticism following widespread report of irregularities and operational failures during the ongoing examination nationwide. Stakeholders, including parents, students, and education experts, have expressed deep concerns over logistical lapses, security issues, and poor management that have undermined the integrity of the exam process. These challenges have sparked calls for urgent reforms to restore public confidence and ensure a fair, transparent examination system. Opening the session, the chairman of the committee of Foji Oboku of PDP Yanagwa Opokuma Federal Constituency Bayelsa State launched a sharp rebuke of the council's performance while commending his colleagues for prioritizing the oversight meeting despite the parliament not being in session. Defending the council, Dangat cited unforeseen logistical challenges and insecurity in parts of the country. At the end of the session, the committee passed a resolution compelling WAEC to submit a comprehensive audit of its digital infrastructure, particularly in underserved areas, and a detailed roadmap on its CBT readiness. The federal government must spend about 880 billion naira annually for the maintenance of the federal road network nationwide. The Minister of State for Works, Mohammed Dogoroyo, has declared. This came as the Managing Director of the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, Chukwemeka Basi, disclosed that the template for deducting the road user charge from the prices of petrol and diesel was never implemented by the defunct Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Authority, now the Nigeria Midstream, and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. The two government officials spoke in Abuja at an investigative hearing of the House of Representatives had a committee. The committee is investigating the implementation and remittances of the 5% user charge for road maintenance under the Federal Road Maintenance Agency. Speaking at the event, Goroyo said, quote, FEMA requires an estimated 880 billion naira annually for optimal road conditions. Budgetary allocations have estimatedly and consistently fallen short, 76.3 billion naira in 2023, 103.3 billion naira in 2024, while 168.9 billion naira was budgeted for 2025. Though these figures show gradual increases, they remain far below the necessary threshold for sustainable road maintenance. This persistent funding gap has forced FEMA into a reactive mode of maintenance rather than preventive approaches. End of quote. He added that inadequate funding has been the major bane of the nation's road infrastructure, stressing that even though the user charge was supposed to be addressing the gap, the agency and the ministry have not been able to access it. The Labour Party presidential candidate in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, has visited Niger State to condole with victims and authorities following the devastating flash floods that ravaged Mokwa local government area, killing at least 153 people and displacing thousands. In a post shared on X, formerly known as Twitter, Obi said he had traveled alongside former Minister Nenedi Usman and spokesperson Yunus Atanko to show solidarity with the people affected by the disaster. Obi revealed that he had earlier contacted Governor Mohammed Umaru Bago from the United Kingdom to extend his condolences before making the trip in person. He was received in the state by Deputy Governor Yakubu Garba. The 63-year-old politician is also announced a 20 million naira donation as part of his commitment to supporting recovery efforts in the state. The former Anambra State Governor called for United Nations response, urging the federal government, emergency agencies, and concerned Nigerians to support the victims. He stated, quote, "May Niger State find peace and restoration, and pray that God comforts the families of those who have lost their loved ones, protect those still missing, and grant healing and strength to everyone affected by the disaster." End of quote. The flood disaster in Mokwa local government area of Niger State has claimed at least 153 lives and displaced more than 3,000 individuals, according to the Niger State Emergency Management Agency in SEMA. The presidency has begun an internal approved process to resolve the 2 trillion naira legacy debt owed by electricity generation companies before the end of the coming quarter as part of efforts to stabilize Nigeria's power sector. A representative of the Special Advisor to the President on Energy, Eriye Onaguruwa disclosed these at the second Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry Stakeholders Meeting in 2025, hosted by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Onaguruwa said the presidency recognizes the urgency of addressing the debt overhang, which has strained Gencos and impeded electricity supply nationwide. She revealed that alternative debt instruments are being explored due to the federal government's current fiscal constraints. While she did not give a definitive timeline, Onaguruwa expressed hope that a clear update will be available before the next quarterly NESI stakeholders meeting, suggesting progress could be announced within the next 3 months. Gencos had issued a warning to the federal government over the continued accumulation of debt, now totaling over 4 trillion naira. The Senate Committee on Power recently raised concerns over the liquidity crisis bedeviling the power sector, lamenting that the tariff shortfalls in the industry indicated that the government owes about 200 billion naira to electricity generating companies every month. The committee disclosed that since this year, the government has not paid the power producers and that this has raised the debt to about 800 billion naira. 7 states spent an average of 190% of their internally generated revenue on debt servicing in the first quarter of 2025, a development that shows the worsening fiscal strain facing subnational government. Data from the Q1 2025 budget implementation reports that Bayelsa, Adamawa, Benue, Niger, Kogi, Taraba, and Benue State shows that debt service expenditure in each of the states exceeded their IGR in some cases by more than 300%. The trend, when compared with figures from the preceding quarter, that's quarter 4 2024, also reflect a sharp quarter-on-quarter surge in debt service cost, which rose by approximately 51% across the states reviewed. The 7 Nigerian states spent a total of 98.71 billion naira on debt servicing in quarter 1 2025, marking a sharp decline of 33.48 billion naira or 51% compared to the 66.24 billion naira recorded in the previous quarter. The data further revealed that the combined IGR for the 7 states rose modestly from 44.05% from 44.05 billion naira in quarter 4 2024 to 51.92 billion naira in quarter 1 2025, indicating an increase of 7.87 billion naira. However, this marginal revenue improvement was outpaced by a surge in debt repayment obligations, highlighting the widening fiscal gap at the subnational level. The Q1 2025, the 7 states required a combined total of 46.80 billion naira from their FAAC allocations to fully cover the shortfall between IGR and debt service. This amount represents approximately 11.15% of the total FAAC inflows of 419.86 billion naira during the period. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on the Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll be taking a short break. When we return, we head into the news analysis segment. We'll be right back. Okay, joining us here on the World News at 12 is Mr. Chukwuma Okoro. He is an OAP and, of course, a public affairs analyst. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start with the Amnesty International call for a probe into the reckless Nigerian military airstrike. This is not the first time we're having this issue where civilians have been caught in the crossfire. But it looks like probably because there's not been enough outcry, the federal government do little or nothing about that.
Well, I'm not sure it's a matter of not enough outcry, because the same Amnesty International that has raised this issue now also said it before, and it has said it severally. Nigerians have also cried out, about the military not being very precise. I think it's an issue of precision and accuracy in military targeting its hitting its targets appropriately.
Okay.
The last time it happened, more casualties were recorded. At this time, I think we are looking at how many five members of the vigilante group that were killed. In other instances, I think there was one where a wedding occasion was taking place.
Yeah.
And they were bombed, they were killed, by men of the Nigerian Air Force, apparently in pursuit of bandits and terrorists and all of that. And Nigerians cried out that period. It was a lot. It was huge. The same Amnesty International that has taken up the gauntlet again.
Took it up then.
Yeah, took it up then. So it's not I think it's a matter of lack of coordination between the ground forces and the air operations. I said this in the light of the fact that from the reports available, the Air Force was actually working with vigilantes. And now the Air Force has come out to say, look, at that point, when we were trying to move in for the aerial bombardment, we asked them, to retreat, but they didn't. So if you ask them to retreat, and they didn't, well, does it look like they were informed to retreat? And why is it that another question is, why is it that only 5 people were caught, in the crossfires? But these things happen in all parts of the world, even in Iraq, in Afghanistan, when America was trying to do what they were doing there. People were also caught in the crossfires. It's called collateral damage, when you don't set out, to kill civilians, but they are caught in the line of...
But it's not exactly the same situation here. This brings me to the next question, where, because that particular scenario you're calling, it's usually more like a wartime measure.
But this is wartime. Isn't it wartime? It's wartime. I mean, you see people who, in the process of rustling cows and cattle, also, if you stand in there, where they're going to kill you. We also seen bandits go out to kidnap people and ask for ransom. We have seen terrorists like Boko Haram go out of their way, even without asking for ransom or anything, kill innocent people. Communities are asked, to pay a certain amount of levy, or otherwise they should move out in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
But the rules are different. For the military, there's supposed to be a rule of engagement here. Okay. So the bandit to terrorists can do that, but you are not supposed to do that.
Now, rules of engagement, when it's a war of a symmetric war, the enemy that you are fighting. I mean, if Nigeria is fighting with Cameroon, or if Nigeria is fighting with Niger, there could be rules of engagement because you clearly know who you are fighting against.
Okay.
But in this case, it's a war of asymmetry. It's an asymmetric war where you don't even know who the enemy is. I mean, the person could be dressed in a ragtag. The person could also be dressed in a camouflage, probably representing a certain army. So you are not even aware, and the person is maybe stuffed with explosive IEDs and all of that. So in that case, the rules of engagement, the lines of engagement become very broad. So it now depends on the discretion of the person that is fighting. And mind you, the moment that you get your enemy, in target, know also that you're also in target. If I can get you now, if I say that, Solomon, you are in target, what it means that I'm also in target. So at that point, it becomes a matter of discretion. I said this because the Air Force, probably, I think it's, like I said before, it was a problem of lack of coordination between the air and ground forces, because reports say that they were communicating and that these vigilantes were actually giving the Air Force information. So if they were giving them information, I keep asking, like I asked in the morning show on TV, were they communicating? When the area people, the pilot wanted to move in, were they communicating?
Obviously, the communication is bad because too many civilians have been caught in the crossfire. And how long will you continue to invoke the wartime measures into stuff like this before it becomes more like genocide, as it were?
No, it wouldn't be genocide. It can't be classified as genocide.
Definitely not. But how long would civilian life, will keep coming in the crossfire?
No, exactly the point. I said it's lack of precision and accuracy. So what we should be asking the military to do now is to reduce, the number of collateral damage that we have in every situation. But talk about going after the bandits, talk about going after the terrorists. It is something that we should have been done with that by now. If it is aerial bombardment that is going to solve the problem, why not use it? Because it looks like ground forces, they are not working because there seems to be some kind of sabotage. You see, when our ground troops are moving in, and all of a sudden they are called back, and in the process of retreating, they are ambushed by terrorists and bandits. So it shows you some form of complicity
because
within the military authority.
I'm saying this because the military intelligence should also know. I mean, they're working with bandits and terrorists there, so they should be aware that these people will hide under the cover of civilians.
Good.
They should know that
Now,
too.
when you talk about military intelligence, how much of that do we have and how much of it do we use?
But is that an excuse though? Because the federal government have the power to have enough military intelligence.
Now, it goes back to the question I asked: how much of that do we have? Military intelligence.
Let's go to our next topic because of time. Now, story of nurses leading 60,000 Nigerians abroad joining the NITCOM portal. Now, first of all, we must have to applaud NITCOM for this initiative because we're tired of having to have an estimate in our head what the number of Nigerians are outside of this country. We know they go to millions, probably as much Nigerians we have outside of Nigerians as the one we have in Nigeria. That's how much we are. But at least this will put, will I say, an idea of the number of Nigerians we have outside the country. And then when there is help, when need to help Nigerians outside of the country, it will be easier to help them.
Okay, it's a good thing that NITCOM is doing this. It's a good thing that they are doing it because we often get the impression, we are told that, look, that Nigeria accounts for the most educated diaspora community in some parts of the world.
Yeah, especially UK and US.
Especially UK and US, and now moving to Canada, that Nigerians. So it's good that we get the numbers now so that we don't just guesstimate. No, this is how many we are. So it's a good thing that NITCOM is doing. But on the flip side, it speaks to us about the kind of brain drain that we experience in this country. We'll talk about 60,000 nurses. So how many of them do we have in this country? Because the ones that are here, if you ask me, more than 60% of them also want to leave if they have the opportunity.
It's not just nurses. Nurses is just the high medical professionals, nurses, pharmacists, and medical doctors. That's a whole healthcare department.
People in engineering, ICT, and all of that. Everybody wants to leave. Everybody wants to leave. So it speaks to the kind of brain drain that we have. Unfortunately, when these people go out, they excel and contribute to the growth and development of foreign nations. At the roads in Nigeria, I want to reduce it to my own community.
Okay.
Now, where I come from a community called Ihechiowa in Arochukwu local government area. Now, there's a road that called Arochukwu Ahafia Road. At some point, it was designated as the worst federal road in Nigeria. The worst. For a place that needs me to travel like 30 minutes, I could spend like 2-3 hours on that road, because it was so deplorable, it was so bad. Tippers, trailers, whatever, tankers, had to tip over, because of the bad portions of the road. And now FEMA is telling me that every year that they used to spend 800 billion naira on road maintenance. So which of the roads were they maintaining? We are not talking about constructing new roads. They are just saying that
maintenance
every year, 800 billion naira. So which roads were they maintaining? Were they maintaining the Enugu-Port Harcourt road, the Enugu-Umuahia axis of it that keeps caving in after every 6 months of patchments? Or is it the Enugu-Port Harcourt, the Enugu-Onitsha road? Is it the Auchi-Beni road? Is it the Kaduna Abuja road? Or which of the roads? Where were they maintaining at this point? You know what, Solomon, 880 billion naira is? That's about 120 billion naira away from 1 trillion naira. And they say, not that in this year, when they sell to discos, is it that they don't collect money from the discos to pay the Gencos that gave them the money? So that is the question. You see, corruption, the whole thing is weaved around the issue of corruption. And so, I took it up with somebody, and the person said, look, they are subsidizing. So what value chain are you subsidizing? At the distribution or at the generation or at the distribution end of it? Now, the issue is, if they are subsidizing the Gencos, so why do you have to owe them 4 trillion naira? that you are now making, okay, 2 trillion naira that you are now making internal approval. So where are you going to get this money from? Was it captured in the budget? Are you going to borrow the money from where? To pay who without somebody accounting for that shortfall? How did you arrive at
Well,
the
the president recently sent some money to the National Assembly to be. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said his government will start pushing legislation that would fast-track ambitious national projects to boost Canada's economic and now faced with Donald Trump's tariffs. Carney outlined his plans for a meeting described as very productive with the leaders of Canada's provinces and territories. Carney said his plan is to narrow down a list of so-called nation-building projects like pipelines, nuclear reactors, and trade corridors, and create a framework in which the projects will be approved in under 2 years' time. The goal, he said, is to quickly build infrastructure that will make Canada the strongest economy in the G7, as well as strengthen the country's autonomy and resilience in the future. The meeting marked Carney's first with Canada's premier since his federal election win in April. He had campaigned heavily on bolstering the nation's economy to counter tariff threats from the U.S., with whom Canada does the bulk of its trade. President Trump has imposed tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminium,